Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the annual Stocktaking event of SHICAA, Safe and Healthy Internet for Children and Adolescents Alliance. So it is an alliance of mainly people who are working for safety and also well-being of children and adolescents and young people when they are on the internet, in the digital world, in the online space. Because we have seen that as we have progressed as a society, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, children are learning a lot over the online space, and being in the last 2 years especially, they have been a lot on their digital devices and using the internet for their learning, for their entertainment, for their communication, for their socialization, and many other things that they are doing. So as we see that whenever we live in a world, so we say that it is a digital world and it is a digital society. So it's very important, especially for children and adolescents and teenagers and young people, to be safe when they are using this, because it is an essential part of their life, as we say. And we are not somebody who would say that one should not be using this device or one should not be using the internet, but since it is a technology, and even this meeting is being possible and we have Tushar with us from California, it's mainly possible because of this internet-based technology. So we say that it has to be promoted, it has to be used more and more by children and young people. Obviously, the timings and the usage has to be very age appropriate, but there should not be a complete no-no or a ban for children or young people or adolescents to be using these technologies. So these technologies are to be used because these are beneficial technologies, like means of transports are beneficial, but we have traffic rules. We have the way that one travels from one place to another. There are rules to it. Similarly, when one is using the internet, especially the younger ones are using the internet, it has to be through some rules. There have to be rules, there have to be preventive dimension, and once there comes some problem, there has to be a redressal dimension also. So talking about these things, especially in the context of the new cutting edge technologies of blockchain technology, you may say, or say artificial intelligence and machine learning coming into the social media, or say internet gaming, or in the field of communication, or in the field of e-commerce, even children and young people are using these things. So in this context, we are very fortunate to have Tushar Kant with us. Mr. Tushar Kant is the co-founder of Global IIT Forum on Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning. So he has been graceful enough to join us from California. So it would be quite late in the evening there. So thank you, Tushar, for joining us. And he will be mainly talking about how these technologies are shaping up in the context of the new advancements for learning, new advancements for entertainment, new advancement for communication. And he will also be talking about how these also promote safety. There are added dimensions of danger and danger coming in, the risk and harm coming in because of these technologies. But these are the same technologies which also add dimensions of safety into it, prevention into it. And also if some untoward incidents happen, they also dimensions of solution and redressal of these things. So he'll be talking about these all dimensions. So over to you, Tushar. And Tushar has been very kind enough to also take live questions after stop. So anybody who has questions after he speaks, please raise your hand or write in the chat box, and we'll allow you to interact directly with Tushar. Over to you, Tushar. Thank you so much. Over
Thank
to you.
you. First of all, it's both an honor and pleasure for me to be speaking at this forum. I'm really impressed with the work Ajay and the team has been doing to ensure safety of kids in this new internet age where technology has pervaded every part of our life. I'm also very happy to see my high school teacher, Ms. Gauri Rakshit, who was a teacher to both me and Ajay and helped us shape our personalities, talent, dedication, which has basically helped us reach wherever we are. So, you know, it's again, it's a pleasure and honor for me to meet everybody. Ajay, first of all, you gave a very good statement. I want to pick up upon that. Technology is here to stay. You cannot run away from it. Question is how we handle it, how we work it. It actually takes me back to when I was in ninth grade in the school where me and Ajay studied, and our teacher, Ms. Rakshit, was there. And I was speaking on a topic. I spoke on a topic in a Hindi extempore competition. Should India use its atomic power to build atomic bombs. And my argument was, no, that's not the right use. The right use is to harness it for generating electricity, because India had a huge energy deficit. Same thing comes for internet. It's a double-edged sword. It basically gives us access to a huge amount of information. It basically levels the playing field for people across the world. It basically helps spread education to every nook and corner of the country. It helps basically get healthcare through telemedicine into the hands of people who probably never visited hospital in their life. All of these things have really revolutionized. And as Ajay said, I'm right now in California in Silicon Valley talking to all of you as if I'm actually in Delhi. At the same time, as you can imagine, there are always downsides, drawbacks, repercussions of things. And the reason this whole concept of adolescent mind and how they basically absorb information is very important is because that's the age when your character, when your thought process, your way of thinking, who you are going to become in life in long term essentially gets shaped up. It's also an age where you're vulnerable. You have curiosity, you have desires, you want to experiment with things in certain ways. And that's something that we need to be careful of. A good balance has to be brought in. The question arises, how does this balance get into picture, or how can we basically bring about this balance? Well, we can have a long philosophical discussion on the need, parental control, societal aspects. I'm going to not focus on that. I'm going to focus on some key technologies which basically enable you to do online monitoring of internet content, what basically gets downloaded, how people are accessing it. That's what I'm going to focus upon. So let me first of all help you understand what is artificial intelligence, something which is revolutionizing every part of the world, every sector of economy. Artificial intelligence is a technique where you use historical data to train models to predict what happens in future. It's like human brain, right? So when teachers like Gauri basically train people like me and Ajay, they basically imparted a certain education growing up, right? They use their thought process, their experience to help groom our personalities. Once we reach 20, 22 years old, after that, we are thrown into the real world. Whatever we had learned from them, we basically use that for our own life and then learn over a period of time and improve ourselves. That's how artificial intelligence model works. It works like human brain. You essentially use historical data to train a model and use that to predict what can happen going forward, and also learn in the process through what is called a feedback loop. That is how it basically shapes up. Now, with the kind of work Ajay is doing, and this organization is doing for online safety, there are two key technologies that you need to remember. Computer vision, which includes image processing and video processing, and natural language processing called NLP. These are the two critical technologies. Now, what are they? Let me give you a high-level idea. You guys do not have to take a PhD degree in it to understand its efficacy, implementation, utility, and how it can impact. Computer vision is technology where you can analyze images, like right now I am speaking, Ajay is speaking, to recognize people, who they are, whether the content is appropriate or not, is it age appropriate content or not. That is where computer vision comes into play. NLP is an ability to basically analyze language, words, sentences over a period of time to basically understand its impact, understand where it's coming from, and derive value and meaning out of it. When you combine the two, it's called multi-model analysis, because sometimes the videos may look appropriate, the language is not, or sometimes the video may look inappropriate, but the language is fine. You bring the two technologies together. It's something which is requires, development of this technology is required from the top brains of the world. Cloud computing is something you must have heard of, which is an ability to basically run, technologies and over public cloud, leveraging their compute and storage, and that has really revolutionized artificial intelligence. So ability to process images and text in real time is the two critical components which are required for ensuring online safety of kids, because when they're actually looking at content, we got to figure out a way to understand how it is. It's only when you understand the content can you put filters into it. You want to block the URL, you want to put some filters in your routers, you want to put your filters somewhere else. All of these things basically come into picture and work their way through that. Now, computer vision is a technology on which a lot of research has been done over a period of time, where you use something called CNNs, convolutional neural networks. For example, if I have to show an image of a cat and I want to build a model which can recognize cat, I have to show that particular model thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of images to basically train it to a level where you can figure out whether it's a cat or not. And similarly, whether it's an elephant or a man, and similarly, you can look at other images. NLP is a technique which is a little bit more complex, where if I'm speaking something, you want to interpret, understand what I'm exactly thinking through. And then it's a little bit more complicated because language is, of course, more complicated than images, right? You can look at a cat, a dog, a car, or an inappropriate image for a kid and easily recognize based upon features. When it comes to language, like human beings, computer has a tough time figuring out how the language will work. What I'm going to do is I can talk about a few other techniques, talk about few other companies, and maybe the research work being done in India and different places. But I would like to stop here for a minute, and I like to open it to people, and I want to make it a completely open forum. You can ask me anything you want in artificial intelligence and machine learning, latest in technology, how the world is working, who are the top companies of the world who are working that area, how does it apply to online safety. I want to make it an open forum because Ajay has invited me, a very dear friend of mine since high school days, so that you guys can get a glimpse of where the world is headed in terms of technological advancements, how you can leverage it for different kind of applications across the world. And just for the sake of the audience, in 2019 in January, we had an conference, Pan IIT conference in Delhi, which was focused on artificial intelligence. And I had actually developed the content for that conference in terms of application of AI to multiple different areas: agriculture, healthcare, medicine, trade, a lot of different areas. So, this is a forum where you can ask me, try to understand some of the key challenges that you face in terms of adoption of technologies like artificial intelligence in India. I have a very good friend who is Chief Data Officer of Reliance Jio and works with Ambani family in terms of figuring out how they can leverage artificial intelligence in their data networks. So again, let me stop here before I can certainly talk more, but wanted to open it to the audience. My request is whenever you want to ask a question, I would strongly encourage, if you feel comfortable, to switch on the video if you're not live, or if you want to just put it in the chat, however Ajay wants to do it.
Thank you, Tushar. I think anybody can ask questions. So anybody can put question in the chat box or raise hand. So
good. So if people do not specifically have questions, I would like to basically, Ajay, if you have specific questions, I can answer it for you, or else I can continue my conversation by looking at different parts of Indian economy, of Indian education system, how some of these things work, how we can control. I can talk more. I typically like answering questions from people instead of, just giving a monologue dialogue. How about I make it a little bit? Go ahead, Ajay, you're saying something?
I was mainly saying that we'll take questions because people will take time to formulate questions in their mind, because this is something which we are mainly having people not from technology background, but we have mainly people from social work and academia and sociology and social work background, people also from law background. So it will take time for them to comprehend what you are talking
Absolutely.
about.
Sure. There's somebody called Swati with a question.
Swati has a question. So,
And if she's here, it will be great. Swati, yeah, good. Thanks for switching on the video. Introduce yourself, Swati, and ask your question. I like interacting with the audience. And you have to also tell me not just your name, but also which part of India you're from. Where are you living right now?
So, a very good morning to everybody. Tusharji, my name is Swati Chakravarti and I live in Mumbai. I'm a documentary filmmaker. And I have a question about the artificial intelligence and technology community. So, as you know, with any community, there will be good and there will be bad. And what happens is that just as AI is being used for extreme good, and we can see that in our daily lives, there is a lot of AI that is being used for extremely criminal purposes as well. Now, as ordinary citizens who don't understand technology, we are unaware of how to recognize or to even control or to even predict what the negative, the negative people or the criminal people within AI will be doing next. Is there any movement within the AI community itself, the technologists, to say that let us get together to curb the bad and promote the good and keep our own people in check?
Swati, first of all, amazing question. Since you told your name is Swati Chakravarti, and I always, I grew up near Bengal. So those who know me, Ajay, Gauri, we lived. So I want to add a single line. I'm assuming you're from Bengal. originally. So I certainly going to make a statement saying, Ami Bangla bushti pari, bolti pari na. So, I have, even though I have never lived there, and Ms. Gauri is laughing, she was a teacher. So first of all, and I'm really happy to meet somebody who's a documentary filmmaker. People like you typically do not, you guys are at such a stage of your life, never get a chance to have audience with people like you. But before I answer your question in a technical way, let me answer it in a philosophical way. The challenges you are seeing with misuse of AI is not new to human society. As technologies have developed over a period of time, criminals have always stepped up, right? When we built roads, they decided to go and raid houses. When we built guns, they decided to murder people. You built tanks or aeroplanes, it went into the hand of terrorists, right? This problem has always been where people who have, so the problem is not with the technology, it's with the evil mind of people. Now, how do you handle it? Well, how did we handle robbers, dacoits, criminals in life? We basically had law enforcement agencies, legal rules. So you have to make the right laws, and then you need to have a way to enforce that. This is not different anyways. What we have to do here is, which we're doing now, the law enforcement agencies, that's one of the reasons I wanted to come here. So lawyers, regulatory agencies, people like Ajay, who basically run these kind of forum, they basically have to come together and formulate legal regulations of what is correct and what is not. When that is done, then technologies can help you enforce it. For example, in US, drive in speed limits are very strictly enforced on highways. You can't, let's say drive above 55 miles per hour. But if you're driving in a remote part of the forest where there is no police, people can break laws. What do? You have police monitoring them from helicopters up in the sky. Similarly, for things in internet area where people are going to misuse it, there are security attacks, cyber attacks, and they actually use artificial intelligence for cyber attacks, right? What you do is you build technologies which are smarter than what criminals have. You have to be a step ahead of them. So you get the laws on your side, you have to revise your laws, get laws in place, and then build technologies which are better than that. For example, every top company in America, whether it's on Wall Street or Silicon Valley, is attacked by cyber attackers across the world, from Russia, Iran, Iraq, Crimea, Ukraine. What we do is, and they use artificial intelligence to do these attacks. What we do is we build technologies which are better than that, which means we have to be up at night, you have to be working hard and figuring it out. Now you can very well tell me, Tushar, if you guys are working so hard, why do we still have problems? Why do we still have security failures? Why do you have people utilizing, let's say AI for putting wrong kind of content in front of kids? Why do you fail? I will quote something for you, which P. Chidambaram, I'm not going to take politics into play, but I'm just quoting him. P. Chidambaram, the former Home Minister and Finance Minister of India, told in 2012. He said that as Home Minister of India, I hardly sleep at night. The reason is, if terrorists are trying to attack us in 12 different ways, we have to make sure all 12 of them fail. The reason is, if any one of them succeeds, we have failed. So he said, we have to succeed all the 12 times, terrorists have to succeed only once. And that applies to every area, whether it's online safety, leveraging artificial intelligence for something wrong, making security breaks or cyber attacks. You got to be way ahead of the game of people who attack you. So essentially, to answer your question, three things. Number one, you need to get right laws, regulations in place. Number two, you got to have a way to enforce the laws so that they're enforced in the right way. And third, we got to build technologies which are better than people who are trying to attack us. The combination of the three is what's going to be, going through. Having said that, it will always be a cat and mouse game. Sometimes we will be ahead of the criminals, sometimes they will be ahead of us. But as long as people in power, politicians and bureaucrats have the right intention, have the right motivation, have the right way of thinking, not to side with the criminals, but with the common masses, we should be in good shape in long term. Hopefully that answers your question, Swati, to whatever extent I could. I'm certainly not as smart and as creative as people like you, but I can, this is the insight I can give to you. You're muted, Swati.
Thank you so much, Tusharji. I think you've given a very good answer. I was hoping that there would be something more from the technology community that would come. We do understand law enforcement, laws, and catching the criminals and all of that. But because technology is not like a road is very easy to understand. It's part of our daily life. A gun is not difficult to understand. It's part of our daily life. But technology is something that is much more secret, much more wrapped in jargon, much more hard to penetrate for ordinary people, even politicians, I dare say, or rulers, or even lawmakers. So therefore, I do feel that just as a documentary filmmaker, I feel responsible for my community, for what people within my community do as a social responsibility, and how do we carry out our daily work as responsible citizens who owe it to our people, you know, to keep things going well, to keep things good, and to curb what is wrong within ourselves. That is self-regulation. So as a community, do technologists have any self-regulation, or is it just market forces?
Completely agree with you, and I will answer that in a minute before we can move to other questions. Swati, the technology community, first of all, I'll take your thoughts back to the community. I run a global forum of IITians across the world. You'd be surprised. The number of people who want good things to happen is typically more than the number of people who want bad things to happen. We are certainly committed. That's one of the reasons why you have research work being done in top universities of the world. You have government funding these kind of research. People like me and IITians across the world have been working on developing these technologies. We are certainly committed. We are aware of it, and we have been working upon it. It's just that, as you clearly mentioned, road and guns are easy to view. Intense mind of cyber criminals and people who misuse them is a little bit tougher. But trust me, we are much more smarter. We are committed, and I have to really thank India's educational system for producing some of the top brains of the world, especially from the IITs who are in US and other places to build these technologies, and they are really working at the forefront of it. Is the battle won? Absolutely not. Is this going to be a long and tough fight? You bet. Are we going to give up? That certainly is not happening. So that's our commitment. Thank you, Swati. Ajay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Uh, Thank you, Swati, and thank you, Tushar. I have a rejoinder question to what Swati ji asked.
Sure,
Now,
absolutely.
see, I can understand that you guys are very committed, but see what and it requires a lot of effort to build technologies and to keep the safer technologies a step ahead than the technologies that are used by the criminals, right? But building safer and technologies and being up to the task, up to the speed, requires money and requires investment. And building safe technologies or technologies to prevent child pornography or child sexual abuse material are, they do not fetch money, right? And building technologies to misuse or promote or cause abuse or harm or risk, they it is a business. So how do we counter that? Because see, building safer technologies doesn't make much business sense. Nobody kind of funds it, or it does not generate that kind of money from the public as something which is evil does. So how
It's a
do
very good question. This reminds me, and no, please do not consider this to be a wrong comment, but reminds me of the place I grew up called Sindri in Dhanbad. And Dhanbad as a district was famous for mafias. And it was much better to become a mafia to amass a big fortune than to be an honest policeman, because you might get actually shot someday, right? Let's leaving aside the specific name of the mafias and politicians we knew about. Ajay, you touched a very interesting point. Internet has become commercial. It has got market forces directing it, and people who can make money by misusing technology or misdirecting or misguiding our youth have much more powerful, have much more, deeper pockets, right? But then that's where society, government, democracy comes into play. For example, US government, or for that matter, other elected governments in the world have huge budgets, and it's like police, right? So they have budgets to essentially put some law enforcement agencies on the cyber side, on the online side into play to work their way through it. Number two, there's a lot of university research grants which come in, which especially both in India and top schools as well as in world, where you can develop this technology. Now, there are market forces also in play to help you. For example, if I have to subscribe to some kind of a website or some kind of internet service provider at my home, for example, and I've got a kid who is 13 years old, I'm not going to take something for my internet service if I'm not convinced it's going to be safe for my son. So the company who's selling, giving my internet service provider may not care about the safety of my child, but I care about it. So I'm going to be basically acting as a pressure on them to develop technology which can make my kid and my home safe. It's the other way around that it works. When that works, it also puts pressure on the government agencies, the research funding to develop technologies which aids them. Essentially, at the end of the day, public sector and private institutions have to come together to build solutions which are really viable, can be easily implementable and deployable. And the market forces act when so the way you have to basically get the market forces to act is to make the end consumers aware of their rights, challenges, problems, difficulties, trials, and tribulations. When they get aware of it, right, and when they demand, we need something safer. It's like thinking about it like this, right? Given a choice, I'm sorry to disparage, but it's truth. Given a choice, politicians in any part of the world won't give a damn to, roads, electricity, poverty, law and order. It's when you go for the elections and the people really, come back and ask them questions, then it puts pressure on them that they need to deliver results to actually come back into power. I'm just giving an example. Same thing happens. So 2 or 3 things are happening. Awareness of and the consumers that what they are doing requires them to do something good, work their way through that, and demand the market forces to basically provide them with services and products which are good for them. Number 2, law enforcement agencies essentially funding research which basically counters them over a period of time, and then bringing public sector and private sector together, because those are the forces which are going to basically bring these things to happen. Is this that simple? Absolutely not. Is this a battle which has been won? No, no way. However, the very fact that today somebody of your stature and your organization is holding a conference on this for 2 days, the fact that it has motivated somebody like me to come and basically interact with the audience, is going to go live on YouTube. Thousands of people will listen to it. We are educating people of their demands and rights, their privileges and challenges, their opportunities, and democracy basically teaches you to ask the right questions, right? What is the reason why in dictatorship they never want education to flourish? Because education helps people ask questions. When people ask questions, things change. The combination of these forces is what's going to act, Ajay, and it's certainly moving in the right direction over a period of time.
Thank you so much, Tushar. Any other question? Anybody else wants to ask a question?
I see somebody, gentleman called Yogesh Kumar, joining from Police Academy in Jodhpur. Is that correct, Mr. Yogesh?
Yogesh works with Pratidhi Police Foundation. It is a police foundation in Delhi. So
Amazing.
it is an NGO and Delhi Police collaboration.
Amazing, amazing. I mean, Yogesh, I want to thank people like you who basically have been trying to bring what is called humanity, sensitivity, care, a kind of, social obligation in the minds of the police department and help them change their image. I'm pretty sure they all want to do good for the society, but I think people like you help bridge the gap and address the concerns. So I'm really thankful to people like you.
Thank you, Tushar. Thank you so much.
I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, Yogesh ji, anytime.
No, it's okay. You have already shared lots of experiences and information with us. Thank you so much.
So Ajay, given that I think I have another 4 or 5 minutes to go, correct?
Yeah.
What I would like to, the departing thoughts for the audience would be, first of all, thanks. The very fact that we are having this particular conference, the very fact that we all have aggregated from different parts of the world. I'd shared the information about your, conference with thousands of people in US and across the world. So people will certainly go and check your content over a period of time. That is the first step towards success. That's the first step that we can take to make people aware. That's the stepping stone for figuring out long-term solutions to problem. It's only when we start talking about something, no matter how uncomfortable the topic is, no matter how touchy the subject matter may be, no matter how sensitive the issue may be, it's when we start talking, when we start having a conversation, that the dialects open up, and then over a period of time, you basically get to a resolution, a touching point, a finishing point from where you can go. That's the first thing I want to really thank the organizers for it. Number 2, my friends, technology is going to stay. Learn to embrace it, learn as much as possible about it, and also figure out how to control it to the best possible extent from whatever sources and techniques that you are aware of. Third, as far as kids are concerned, I was having a conversation with Ms. Gauri recently. It's very clear that, welcome, I saw this message from Mr. Navdeep Singh for Delhi Civil Defense. I greatly respect such organizations, Navdeep ji. Parents cannot abdicate the responsibility that they have for their kids. No amount of regulation, laws, control can prevent your kid from going in the wrong direction if you do not make your kids your priority. when they come back from school, make sure that if they're watching or seeing computer or whatever they're watching, make sure doing it in a place in house where anybody can see, right? Spend time with your kid, talk to them. One of the reasons they go for online kind of stuff is when parents are not available. One thing you have to remember, the reason we respect teachers like Gauri or others is because they gave their time to us. Still now I can probably reach out to her for guidance. This is a very critical element in life. Parents have to play the role. Computer and internet cannot replace parents. You spend time with your kids, understand them, connect with them so that their mind does not go in a wrong direction. They do not go to seek answers at places which have an incentive to misguide them. So that is a very critical component of it. And fourth, make sure be aware and put pressure on your law enforcement agencies and regulators to let them know that you are not some kind of pawn on the chessboard who can be used for making money through free advertisements, which a lot of these people do. Those are my closing thoughts, Ajay. I think we are moving in the right direction. A lot more, a lot more consensus has to be built. A lot of people have to come together, and that way we can march forward. Those are my closing thoughts. Happy to take any last question that you have in next 1 minute. Otherwise, it's both a pleasure and honor to be here. Interact with people like Swati, Yogesh Ji, Navdeep, everybody. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Tushar, and thank you for pointing out that and coming it mainly from your mouth that technology is here to stay. We have been saying it that technology is here to stay, and we have to embrace it for the good. Learn what harm it causes, what are the risks. So we are working in that direction of building preventive modules. But when it comes to technology which is causing harm, which cannot be kind of covered by education or building skills. So we also need to learn about which are those technologies, and you did talk about which are those technologies. And it really becomes difficult to learn those technologies and what harm they can cause and what are the preventive steps. But with people like you on board with us, whom we can reach out to, and your global IIT forum on artificial intelligence and machine learning, if we can work together, then we will be having these kind of readily available thoughts and knowledge and skills for our audience, because we work with huge lot of people, with the academic and the school community, with the universities, with colleges, and with hospitals working on the mental health dimensions, on the behavioral issues. So thank you so much, Tushar. And we are not saying bye to you. So it is just that we are saying bye to you on this meeting. So
right. And Ajay, and I do have a request. I'm seeing some really good messages from people like Amreen, Sonali, and everybody. Once this conference is over, I would be grateful to you if the organizers can send me a video link of the last half an hour of my conversation, because I would like to spread it out to thousands of people through my social media channels so that they can go and listen to it. Not because it's going to take me to somewhere in my own life, but I want them to understand and learn that these kind of forums exist who are addressing these tough challenges. And when these tough challenges are being addressed worldwide, then people will learn much more and will accomplish their objective. Thank you, my friends. Have a good day, a very successful conference. Keeping in touch. Thank you, Ajay. Thank you. I'll take your leave now.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. So this was Tushar talking to us from California. Now we have